Over the past year, I've made a few recommendations on my channel for people not to purchase a MacBook, either for pricing or thermal issues or keyboard issues. And if you're someone who can swing either way, like you can get a Windows laptop and be happy, or a MacBook right now and be happy, I'd still recommend for you to get a Windows device instead of a MacBook. But if you are someone who requires a MacBook, either for work or school, or you just really want a MacBook right now, then that's what this video is for. It's kind of like a guide to make a purchase decision for the 2019 lineup of MacBooks. Now, as for the reason why I'm doing this now, like why I'm making this video now, it's for two reasons. Number one, at this point of the year, we've seen all the laptops that they have to offer. So with the exception of the 12-inch MacBook, it's unlikely that they'll update any of these for the rest of the year. And the second reason is that Apple's refurb store now has stock of all of the devices I would recommend. Earlier on this year, some of the devices were still missing, but at this point in time, they're all available. And the reason why I recommend the refurb option instead of the brand new stuff is that you're just getting a way better value. You still get Apple Care, you still get their warranty, you get their return policy, you get new batteries and components that can wear out. So it's a much better value than buying new. So I'm gonna start this video off with the 13-inch MacBook Air. This is a device that goes for just over $1,000 in the refurb store. If you need more storage, it's $1,200, but this is unfortunately the least expensive of the MacBook options in the store right now. Now, it's a 2-core CPU. It's not super powerful. I think most people will be able to use this as their kind of everyday machine. If you need something that's more capable, like if you plan on doing photo or video editing, you might have to look at one of the more powerful options, but for a lot of people, this is a good fit. Even if you're a developer, like I think a lot of development can be done on just a 2-core CPU. Now, when this thing launched, it was not available in the refurb store, so it was priced around $250, $300 more than it is right now. And at the time, it was difficult to recommend this because you could get the base model 13-inch device for a little bit cheaper. But at this point, because it is available in the refurb store, I think it's a good option. If you want something a little bit smaller and lighter, there is the 12-inch MacBook. It's a device that came out in 2017, like the last time they refreshed it was 2 years ago, so it's a little bit dated, but it is a kind of unique device in how thin and light it is while still having a very usable full-size keyboard. The one issue I have with it is the single port. If you ever want to plug anything into that computer, you have to unplug the power and then plug up your adapter or dongle or whatever it is. Point being, it's an inconvenience that you just have to live with if you want that reduction in weight. It starts at around $1,100, and if you don't have a particularly heavy workflow, if like the majority of the stuff you do is just typing documents, then it's viable, but really its main advantage is that it's super small. Okay, last two, we have the two MacBooks. We have the 13-inch and the 15-inch. Now, these devices used to run 2 and 4-core CPUs. So in 2016 and 2017, 2-core CPUs, 4-core CPUs for the 13 and 15-inch model. And then in 2018, they had 4-core CPUs and 6-core CPUs. And that year, the 2018 model is the sweet spot. And you can save around $400 or $500 if you get the 2018 models in the refurb store, but you only want to consider these kind of pro models if your workflow can actually benefit from core count. And a lot of people just don't recognize whether or not it can. Like if you're doing development, then yeah, if you're doing video and some photo editing, yeah, you can benefit from higher core count. But for everyone else, like if you're just typing stuff, doing emails, and just doing regular computer work, then I wouldn't really recommend these because you're paying more for them, they're bigger, they're heavier, and really the only advantage that these have over the 13-inch MacBook Air or even the 12-inch MacBook is just core count. Okay, so that's basically the current laptop lineup. I will mention this device, the iPad Pro. Because of the new iPad OS, this is now a much more viable alternative to laptops than it has been in the past. It's not perfect, it's never gonna be perfect, but I think it's easier to recommend now than it has been in the past if you want to use this as a laptop alternative. There's still a lot of disadvantages to it, like the file system is limited still, and if you're looking for a particular app that you need for work, there's a good chance it won't exist for iPad OS, and they're not particularly cheap, right? These are quite expensive systems, but if you're that person that really wants to try this, it is more viable now than it has been in the past. So that's the current lineup. I also want to talk about a couple other things. The first is kind of an alternate purchasing route to a MacBook, and that is to purchase their really old stuff, or the 2014, 2015 era MacBooks. Now, I think there are a lot of people that remembered the 2014 and 2015 MacBooks as having like the best of everything. Like they were upgradable, they were repairable, they had very reliable keyboards. The thing is, if you're buying those devices now in 2019, they are quite old. They're like 4, maybe 5 years old at this point, and you'd have to buy them used on eBay or Craigslist at this point. They're a lot cheaper, so if you're on a really tight budget, it makes sense. And also if you're just someone that needs something for iOS development, it also makes sense because it's so inexpensive. But for the average user, because of the age of those machines, you're gonna have to replace stuff. Like at the very least, the battery is gonna have to be swapped out relatively soon. Those things have like 1,000 cycle lifespan, and they're not super easy or cheap to replace. I think just for most people that are interested in getting into that MacBook ecosystem, the newer like refurb models are just a safer option right now than the cheaper, like much older units, just because of how old those units are getting. Okay, there's one last thing I want to kind of leave you with, just kind of food for thought. Traditionally, one of the characteristics that MacBooks have had is really good resale value. If you saw earlier, the resale market of the 2014, 2015 models is quite active, but with the 2016 and onwards devices, because these are so difficult and expensive, and in some cases impossible to repair or upgrade, the resale value of these might be affected by that, because if someone buys one of these secondhand and the RAM or the drive goes down, it's not like $100 or $200 replacement of that component. It's the replacement of the entire motherboard. It's expensive. It's like $700-800 at the base. So that's what we have here with Apple's current laptop lineup. But if you really want one, well, now you know. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.